Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Maritime SoftwareHub, the People Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by a relative newcomer to the maritime technology space in terms of building his own platform and business. And I'm really impressed with what he's been doing so far. So our guest today is Casimir Morobé, the founder of Toqua. And we're going to dive into the topic of how AI can accelerate maritime decarbonization. So, Casimir, I'd love it if you could give us an overview of who you are and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here, Callum. So indeed, I'm Casimir. I'm the founder and CEO of Toqua. Started the company 4 years ago after writing my master's, or after doing my master's rather, in business engineering and data science and machine learning. And during my thesis, I wanted to apply that machine learning to a field that interested me personally, and I was very much into sailing. So I kind of extrapolated that and thought, okay, maritime in general will interest me, and reached out to some shipping companies in Belgium here. And one of them got back saying like, hey, we have this IoT data, like a lot of big data, but we're not doing anything with it. Maybe you want to have a go at that, see what you can do with machine learning. It was super interesting. It was also during COVID time, so had a lot of time to focus on that master's dissertation. And saw just that there was a lot of potential from a technology point of view, but also because I was on the work floor with them and had direct contact with all the people there, I could also easily validate like what's the business value out of this? How are you doing this today with your current processes, and how much could this potentially save you in money and emissions? And after seeing that impact was absolutely huge, decided to make a startup out of it, because I also had been working with another startup before that. And I was sort of like, okay, if these guys can do something like that, it should be possible for me to try and do something similar in the maritime space. So that's how we got started 3-4 years ago, and still going at it.
Amazing. Yeah, really impressive. And especially to focus on a topic which is obviously so key and really prominent in shipping at the moment, which is decarbonisation and reducing emissions and things. So really interesting. And we're going to talk about how technology obviously can improve that area of maritime. So you've obviously done, you also have some kind of non-profit type of things going on. I noticed is it Everest Analytics? Is that something you're still involved with at the moment, or is it more of a side sort of project?
Indeed, it doesn't take that much of my time. It's more something on the side that I started also when I was graduating. Actually kind of happened by accident. I had planned to do 3 sort of internships or short working periods at some non-profits or impact organizations across Africa, like in Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, where data science could be used to kind of improve their operations. Like one example project was to improve the efficiency of like solar panels that would power the sprinklers of farmers to help them improve productivity and stuff like that. Because I really wanted to apply data science and machine learning to like an impact problem. And so I had that lined up after graduating, but then COVID happened, and then all of that, suddenly wasn't possible anymore.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I still want to use these projects or kind of take this opportunity and make the best out of it. And that's when I started Everest, which is indeed a non-profit I do on the side, where we put master students in machine learning to work on impact projects, either social or ecological impact projects for non-profits across the world. We've done some really nice projects, some on like cancer research, but others also on like detecting coral reef degradation, others on improving productivity of farmers in Africa and those kind of things. So super interesting stuff. And we do those for free because the students get some experience, the non-profits get to be more productive, and it's also guided by professional machine learning consultancy companies here in Ghent that put one consultant on that pro bono to just facilitate the project. And for them, it's also kind of a recruitment process. So everybody wins. Nobody needs to get paid per se. And that way, those projects could be done. And we did that one semester, and then we kept finding new projects and more people willing to do it. And so it's kind of started to live a life on its own. So I'm not super involved in the day-to-day, but I'm happy to see it still exists. And using the platform we have here, I'd say the same. If anyone there is working for a nonprofit or knows a nonprofit with a lot of data that they're not really leveraging yet, feel free to reach out, because it's free projects. We're always looking for interesting projects to work on to put those students to work. So that's something I do on the side, but I wouldn't say it takes that much of my time anymore.
Very interesting. No, that's excellent. And yeah, I mean, I've obviously in the run up for this, I've had a good look through the website, your Toqua's website, and honestly, it really, really, I mean, for someone coming from as a non-customer or just interested in the business, it's really, really helpful. I really like your frequently asked questions section, just to sort of go through each piece by piece, typical questions people might have, and it's really interesting. So, what we'd love if perhaps you can give our listeners a bit of an overview of Toqua's solution and what Ship Kernels is and the kind of markets you serve, if that's okay.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure. So I think maybe to start with the trends we're playing on. So the first one is decarbonization. I mean, shipping needs to decarbonize. There's a lot of regulatory pressure, carbon taxes coming into play. So that's the main focus of Toqua. And then the second trend is the shift towards big data that's very suddenly happening in maritime. So from traditional manually reported noon reports, maybe less than 100 data points a day, suddenly transitioning to IoT data, connectivity, also Starlink and those type of technology facilitating that. So suddenly having millions of data points per day. And that's a very sudden shift that's happening, a lot of potential, and it's very underutilized at this point. So on those two trends is what Toqua plays on to accelerate maritime decarbonization. That's our goal, to accelerate maritime decarbonization. And our product we call Ship Performance Orchestration. And what that does is basically it makes sure that as companies transition towards this age of big data, that they also ensure that they make that big data work for them. Because today we see often big data is being collected, it's being stored, but it's not yet being used. And so we use AI to convert that data into value and fuel savings. And so to go a bit more in details, indeed, you mentioned the Ship Kernels. That's kind of our AI component.
Okay.
So what we do is we aggregate all different data sources, so IT data, noon report data, but also events, weather data, those kind of things. We clean the data, enrich it with third-party sources, because also data quality management is a big challenge if you're transitioning from noon reports to suddenly IoT data and big data. That's something that requires technology to manage that process as well. And then the core of it is indeed the Ship Kernels, which are AI models that model a vessel's performance, so the relation between speed, power, RPM, fuel, emissions for all the secondary conditions that a ship experiences, because it's not a simple, let's say, two-dimensional problem between speed and fuel. It's a very high-dimensional problem where the impact of wind, waves, currents, draft, salinity, water temperature, water depth, all have an effect on. And so typically such a high-dimensional problem with a lot of big data is a good case for AI to bring value. And so we learn for the impact of all these secondary conditions, so we can remove the noise that you typically have in traditional performance analysis to paint a very clear picture of how is your vessel actually performing, but also how would it perform in different operating conditions and how has performance been evolving over time. Because this understanding of a vessel's performance and that relation between speed and fuel really lies at the core of almost all decision making in shipping, be it commercial, be it technical, be it operational. It all starts from this speed to fuel relationship. Yeah. And then I think an important thing to mention is that we saw that there's already a lot of software out there in maritime, and we didn't want to build something from scratch to compete with what's already out there. We wanted to contribute in the area where we can, which is in big data, machine learning, data management. And so we decided to make our product API first in a way that we're completely agnostic, so we can take in whatever data they have, even if it's collected with other systems. We then create our AI models, the Ship Kernels, and then instead of building a whole software package around it that also does routing and a fully fledged dashboard, we feed those AI models via an API into other applications such as routing, commercial platforms, performance platforms, etc. So we can focus on what we're good at, which is the AI and the big data part, and then push the benefits of that to the existing platforms the customers already have to make the adoption of AI also a lot easier for them. And this maybe sounds a bit high level, so I might need to give a specific example, but no, it's clear.
Yeah, great overview. And I do think that having that functionality to collaborate with other maritime software providers of different kind of functions is really important, especially when there's a lot of choice for ship owners and charterers out there. they're obviously getting kind of a little bit bombarded with a whole range of solutions. And if you have something that can just connect to their existing platforms or data sort of providers, it's really, really important, I think. And until like a one shop comes along that can do every single piece, which I don't really see happening at the moment. So it's, great setup, and it already looks like you've got some really kind of high profile customers on board, so they're already using the platform and seeing like the average like emissions reductions and things is really impressive. And yeah, I mean, so going forward for Toqua, like what sort of the next sort of phase do you think in the kind of the life cycle of the business? I imagine you've got some big projects and things coming up.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, we've been around now for 3-4 years. We've had some, like you said, very high profile customers. I mean, one of the first ones was Euronav, where we implemented these models to contribute to their routing, because the more specific you can understand how a vessel performs in different conditions, the better the routing optimization on top of it can also find the most efficient route that minimizes fuel consumption. We saw huge fuel savings were possible there. Like really into the millions across their fleet, which is, great, from a profit point of view, but also to reduce emissions. And apart from that, there's also other business cases, and then, improving performance understanding, better cleanings, commercial decision making, et cetera, et cetera. And we've done a lot of those cases for, profile customers, high profile customers all over the world, saving, millions in fuel and also emissions. But really, that mostly worked really well for customers on the spot market. So customers, operating their own vessels, paying their own fuel, because there the business case is just very clear. If you can save millions of dollars on your own fuel consumption, that's a no-brainer. So we've done really great things with them. But a large part of the industry, there is this conflict of interest where the one party owns the vessel and the other is the one who is chartering it and paying for the fuel, and that creates a sort of conflict of interest. And it's really, from my point of view, one of the largest barriers holding back maritime decarbonization in the short term. And it's very similar to the one in housing, where if you have the let's say the owner of an apartment, he has very little incentive to invest in, let's say, improved isolation, because it is the tenant at the end of the day who pays the heating bills. So this same conflict of interest happens at just a much larger scale in shipping. And it's really a blocker for a lot of decarbonization technologies. And so our next step, our next frontier, is to also use our technology to remove that barrier, to get both people on the same side, to align financial incentives, so both parties benefit financially from decarbonizing their vessel. And we think we're well suited to do so, because the issue at the heart of this problem is that the performance clauses used today between the charters are often very vaguely defined, but about 12 knots at about that this amount of fuel per day in good weather, and there's without adverse currents. So it's very vaguely defined, and also the processes to make claims, etc. It's a bit of a mess, and that's what keeping this conflict in shape as well. And the reason it is so vaguely defined is because historically there was only noon report data, which is not super reliable data, also not super frequent. The weather data might not be available for all points worldwide in a reliable way, and the analysis techniques were also quite limited. So now today, with IoT data, with reliable weather data, with advanced modeling techniques like AI, you can make a very accurate definition of performance in a way that you can transparently share between owner and charter, and you can use to then also embed within these contractual and commercial ways of working to have a much sharper definition of performance. And then you can use this to also align incentives commercially, so both parties benefit financially from decarbonizing their vessels. And that's really the next frontier. It's going to take time, because shipping has worked in a different way for decades. So it's going to take time, but given the pressure of decarbonization, there is no other way than coming closer together, becoming more transparent, and working together towards that goal. And maybe a specific example that we had recently with a customer is they said that because of our technology, they were able to make $1 million investment into a new energy savings device, or some type of air lubrication device.
Okay.
Because initially they liked technology, they believed it worked, but they couldn't justify $1 million investment, as they were on a long-term TC contract And so the charter would be getting the benefits of the fuel savings, basically. But because they could use our technology to define the current performance of the vessel, how this ESD would improve performance, they could agree to go 50-50 with the charterer to split the investment upfront and then also split the benefits of the savings 50-50 between them. And that was just a really nice case for us to see how technology like this is not only good to save, some fuel consumption as we've been doing, but it could also be a huge enabler for other decarbonization technologies to make the business case much clearer, and also to solve that split incentive problem. So I'm really excited about that, and that for us is really the next frontier.
Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting. And you mentioned the kind of comparison to the sort of the housing market, and when you own a house, like typically in the UK anyway, you get like an EPC rating, like an energy performance kind of certificate. I don't know if they already have that in place on vessels, but do you see that there's going to be, each vessel will have like an emissions grade type of thing? Is that something that is coming in place at the moment, which could kind of streamline the process and help up the sort of focus on decarbonisation?
Well, I mean, you could say that the CII that's already in place is something similar to that, but it's not really. It's a bit oversimplified, and also the operations have a large effect on it, while we're really more talking about the technical performance than the operational performance. So if your vessel is, let's say, idling for a long time, that will be very bad for your CII rating, even though the vessel in itself might be efficient. But if it's just not sailing, then you'll have a bad CII rating. And so I think CII is a good starting point, and it's good that we have these things because it's pressuring people in the right way. But I think actual vessel performance is just so much more complex than what the CII can capture. And also it's such a fundamental part of the commercials in shipping that you need to get it absolutely right, highly accurate, or people just won't be willing to use it, because it's just, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over such a TC contract that you need to get this right. So the devil's in the details, and I think that's where more advanced technology like ours comes in, even though regulatory metrics like CII are definitely also a push in the right direction.
I guess like maybe the automotive industry has already got those kind of emissions monitoring for like Europe, different types of cars and motorbikes and things that have certain types of exhaust and things. Maybe that will happen and shift over to the shipping maritime if it's not already. Okay, cool. All right then. So yeah, I mean, what I'd love to sort of talk about now is obviously your role, becoming a founder, starting up your own business and things. And you mentioned you had some experience with startups before, and obviously you've been doing your kind of non-profit kind of organizations on the side. So what was it like? What's your kind of day-to-day life like when you, in those early days of founding Toqua?
Yeah, well, it's changed a lot, and it's been a process compared to the beginning when we were a very small team, and now we have some more people. So, an average day. I mean, I don't think that really exists, not for anyone in a startup, and that's also what keeps it interesting. But specifically for myself, I feel a challenge is to not get too sucked into the day-to-day operational stuff, because at the end of the day, in theory, my only job should be to define the priorities and make sure that we deliver on those. But given it's your company, you want everything to be perfect and to go fast. You kind of pick up work left and right to make sure things keep moving. But that's really dangerous to lose focus. Like for example, yesterday a customer had some questions on the product, and then I ended up giving them a whole product tour, and then they discovered some new business cases that were relevant to them. And another one was their customer had some questions on the accuracy metrics and the savings validation methodology we use, and then I typed the whole book in reply. That helped them then, forward that internally and educate their colleagues. And then there was another customer that wanted to connect their data sources to our system, and I spent some time with their IT to get things up and running. And all of that is great and gives me a lot of energy to help and to keep things moving. But I should really actually try to pull myself away from those kind of things and focus on kind of the bigger challenges, such as, okay, why couldn't the customer figure that out by themselves? Should we change our sales or onboarding process? Should we change our documentation, or should we change how we can accept data, to really focus on the scalability and kind of the future of things? And that balance is sometimes really counterintuitive, because you want to help people, you want to do good, but then sometimes you have to trust your people to take care of that so you can focus on the bigger picture. And it's been a process, but I feel like I'm slowly getting better on that, even though I should probably try and do it even more.
No, that makes sense. And I think a lot of founders fall into that sort of trap, and you want to help everyone, don't you? So it's sort of especially as you're probably one of the most passionate people about the business, so it's you want to make sure everyone's happy and getting the information they need. So that makes sense. And I mean, in terms of kind of key milestones since you've launched the business, are there any I mean, you talk about kind of if your people are looking for funding, they go through like Series A, Series B kind of stages, and the go-to-market stage. But what are the sort of the processes and milestones been like for you so far?
Well, I guess the first big milestone was really getting our solution fully operational for the full fleet of Euronav, because that was a big logo, but also just we saw a huge impact there. So it was really kind of turning the dream into reality and seeing it actually works and it's doing great things. So that was like the first huge milestone. The second one is then also repeating that. So validating, okay, this is not only for that single customer business case, but we've been able to repeat it. You know, with customers in Singapore, Japan, Norway, Greece, I mean, everywhere around the world by now that face these same issues. So that's been great to be able to validate. It's not just that company has that problem, but it's a very general problem across shipping. And then I would say our next key milestone I'm focusing on is to get these first versions of kind of formulated performance clauses going, where our technology is key in validating that performance and distributing the earnings or being like the independent reference for that. Because that's really going to pave the way for faster decarbonization. And yeah, that's kind of the next milestone to get those first cases out there, because we're trialing this right now with some big names, but you know, it's a process. It takes time, it takes some iterations to get right. But I hope that once we can get the first results out there and market and publicize those, that also others will start to adopt it. And it's kind of the first step in a much larger change across the industry towards more transparency and kind of win-win contracts on the performance side of things. So yeah, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. And what's been you don't have to tell me if you prefer not to, but in terms of kind of your approach to the team and who you've hired in the past, I mean, we help a number of kind of startups and scale ups in the maritime technology and associated markets recruit. And even just yesterday, a company was looking at whether to hire a senior product manager first or a head of sales first. Both of which would need to have maritime expertise, but also ideally either a passion for technology or some kind of link to software as a service. So did you go down the route of looking to sort of hire commercially first, like go for sales, or was the tech team and having that kind of in-house kind of maritime expert the most important thing, do you think?
Well, I think we did both from very early on. We made sure to surround us with people who were very experienced in the industry. Not all of them per se as employees, some of them as advisors. And, you know, shipping is, it's a very different world. And also for me, I was just graduating, so it wasn't like I had a whole career behind me in maritime. So definitely surround yourself with people who have experience. You don't need to hire them per se. Even ideally, you know, if you find the right person to do the job with the experience, even better. I think in the beginning, we mostly hired technical people and surrounded us with good people from the maritime industry. And I think we've also just been very fortunate with who we have working at Toqua, because often there's a learning curve on either side, right? On the industry or otherwise on the technical part of things. But I think our most important takeaway on hiring has been that I wouldn't say experience is overrated, but just if you can find young people who are, you know, really ambitious and just have the right energy, they can do, you know, amazing things. So I think our lesson has been to trust more in young people and their young energy and the willingness to learn that can do really, really great things.
That's really refreshing, to be honest. Like, yeah, I mean, we've obviously hired a number of people in the past, and generally there's that kind of, we want someone with 5 or 6 years plus maritime software experience, ideally, and obviously a big network of people to come in and they can hopefully sell to. So I think if you can have that insight with advisors on the maritime, and obviously you said you've got a combination of people with and without maritime experience, which is really important. But it's really refreshing to put the faith and sort of harness that energy of someone coming up from graduate or even not going to university, that type of thing. So really, really cool to see, and especially, I mean, very similar to your background, obviously kind of coming up spotting a problem, which you thought, and obviously going after it. So it's very cool. Great. All right. So I guess, as far as kind of keen learnings that you've sort of had or understood over your time in the maritime industry, what are the things that sort of really stand out to you? Maybe kind of like I said, problems you've seen and maybe kind of possible solutions. Is there anything that kind of comes to mind at all?
Sorry, so the question is, what's my kind of main learning since starting doing business
essentially.
in maritime?
So from your kind of impression of maritime and your I guess your key kind of takeaway essentially.
Yeah. Well, I guess on doing business in maritime, first of all, it's really all about people. So you need to travel a lot and you need to maintain those relations. That's the first thing. The second thing, it's a tricky balance sometimes between patience and persistence, because, things go slow and, you need to respect that sometimes in maritime, but also you need to be persistent. So things keep moving, and finding that balance is an art, I would say. And then also they buy from who they trust. So you need to know what you're talking about. And also you should be able to say no, dare to say no, because some of the best customers we had, they told us that they decided to go with us because we were honest about what we could do, but also what we couldn't do. Like we told them no at some points instead of over promising, and then it also shows like maybe they don't know what they're talking about, and just saying no sometimes and saying this is what we can do and can't do creates a lot of trust. So I think those are the three main takeaways I have so far.
Brilliant. No, very, very helpful. And thank you so much for sharing your insights about this area. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of share again on the topic of AI in shipping or obviously Toqua?
Topic of AI in shipping, I would say it's really only getting started, because AI really builds on the data that's there, and the shift towards big data is only slowly starting to happen in shipping. Like there's so much more data points being generated now. And it's really not mature yet. It's in an early stage. It's going very fast, but there's so much more to happen. So I think it's just super exciting what still lies ahead of us, and the potential impact it can have, because shipping, has been quite the same for a very long time. And I think there's a lot of things that can still improve, and we're just working on one part of it, but it's a lot of exciting things ahead. And then on Toqua in general, if I can use this platform to also make some advertising, of course. If people want to get in touch, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, or if you're interested in a position, do check out our website. We have some open positions, but we're also interested always in just people who are motivated. So if you like the challenge we're solving and you're a motivated person, don't hesitate to apply. And I would say, also in general, if this problem interests you, and also the challenge of how do we align incentives and get these performance clauses shaped in a different way to kind of rethink this relation between owners and charters, is that something you're interested in or passionate about? Also feel free to get in touch, and happy to discuss it further.
Brilliant. Good. Thank you very much. And the best way to contact is it toqua.ai, the website, and can they reach out to you perhaps on LinkedIn if they have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me on LinkedIn, but if you want more information, you can go to our website. There's also a bunch of white papers if you want to go a bit more technical or read some customer cases. So I would say yes, LinkedIn or the website would be perfect.
Awesome. Cool. And last question before I let you go, I always like to try and understand the person a bit more about when we have these discussions. And outside of work, I know you're obviously very busy on your projects and things, but is there any other kind of things you like to do in terms of like hobbies or activities where you are in Belgium or wherever you are?
Yeah, no, for sure. I like to read. I also like to spend time with my friends and do sports, like football, running, padel, those kind of things. So I have a life outside of work. Don't worry about it. But or something.
Awesome. Brilliant. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Casimir. A really, really interesting topic and something we're very much involved in our recruitment side as well at the moment. So, pleasure to have you on the show. And if anyone would like to reach out to Casimir, please do so. But for now, thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone.